Everybody recognizes that the book of Ruth is one of the most beautiful pieces of narrative, literary prose ever written. That's not why this book was written, to tell us nice, interesting stories. The book is about something far bigger, and that's why the subtitle to my commentary in the Zondervan Exegetical Commentary on the Old Testament series, the subtitle to my commentary is Ruth, the King is Coming. I am convinced that the author of this book wrote it to explain how you can get from the dark days of the Judges, and the last chapters of Judges are very dark, how out of this world, this ethical and moral cesspool, really, you can get a David. You can tell the book was written for that purpose by the concluding genealogy. Usually we're bored with genealogies, and critical scholars will argue that this genealogy is just tacked on there as a sort of appendix. Nobody takes it very seriously in terms of the function and the form of the book. I actually think it's the key to the book. The book was written to explain the genealogy. And how do we get David out of the dark period of the Judges? The answer comes through God working in the lives of ordinary people. Actually, when you read the book of Ruth, you don't hear much about God doing anything. Does that mean he's missing in the book elsewhere? And I think the answer is obviously no. God is at work everywhere, behind the scenes. And so I talk a lot about the hidden hand of God. Chapter 2, Ruth wants to go and glean in a field of somebody who might be gracious to her. Well, she knows he has to be gracious because it's the dark days of the Judges. You read the book of Judges and men are treating women miserably. It's a sad story. And so she knows if she's going to go and glean in the field, it's got to be a gracious man, and their grace is in short supply. The text then says, literally, her chance chanced upon the field of Boaz. She happened. I think we really ought to render it as luck would have it. She landed in Boaz's field, who's a kind man. How did that work? God's hand is at work in apparently chance events. Chapter 3, Naomi concocts this strange scheme to get Boaz to want to marry Ruth. It's a scheme that shouldn't work. Everything about it is questionable. God's hand is present in silly schemes of human beings. And then finally, of course, in the end, God's hand is present in biological affairs. Ruth had been married to Mahlon for 10 years, no children. How come? She marries Boaz and immediately she gets pregnant. And the text says, God gave her conception. God's hand is in it. This book is about how God orchestrates personal experiences to accomplish his big agenda, which in the end is to get a David out of this. And of course, those of us who have read the New Testament, it is to get Jesus out of this, for the New Testament opens with a genealogy taken right out of the book of Ruth. And there is Ruth's name as one of the ancestors of our Savior.